The text went to the wrong number. A Korean Mafia boss replied, "Dry your tears. I'm on my way." Lisa Williams' hands wouldn't stop shaking. The phone screen swam through the blur of tears that wouldn't stop falling, each drop landing on the intricate white lace of her wedding gown like accusations. The church stretched behind her, every pew a witness. 200 faces had watched her sit here alone for 2 hours, waiting for a man who chose cowardice over commitment. Her maid of honor crouched beside her, voice gentle. "Lisa, sweetie, he's not coming. We need to go." "Just one more minute." The words cracked in her throat. "Please, one more minute." One more minute to make sense of 8 months of planning that Peter had destroyed with silence. One more minute to understand why she wasn't enough, why love wasn't enough. Lisa's thumb found his name in her contacts, pressed it like a bruise she couldn't stop touching. The message poured out of her, raw and desperate, the kind of confession you make when you've got nothing left to lose. "I'm sitting here in my dress. Everyone is watching. If you ever loved me, tell me why." She hit send, closed her eyes, held the phone against her chest like it could stop the bleeding. The phone buzzed. Lisa's breath caught. Her eyes flew open, hope and dread fighting for space in her chest as she read the screen. "Dry your tears. I'm on my way." Relief flooded through her so hard her knees went weak. He'd changed his mind. Peter was coming back. This humiliation had an ending after all. They could still salvage this. They could. The next message arrived. "Don't move from that altar." Something cold crept down her spine. Peter didn't talk like that. Never commanded. Never sounded so absolutely certain of anything, least of all her. Her fingers flew across the screen, frantic. "Peter?" The response came instantly. "No." One word, 2 letters. A door slamming on everything she thought she knew. Then who? "The man who's going to marry you. 9 minutes. Stay exactly where you are." The phone nearly slipped from Lisa's numb fingers. This wasn't Peter. This was a stranger, a wrong number. She'd sent her most broken, vulnerable moment to someone she'd never met. Panic climbed her throat. She typed with trembling hands. "I'm sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore this. I don't ignore gifts delivered by fate. 7 minutes. Is the pastor still there?" Oh God, the whisper barely made it past her lips. Lisa's eyes darted to the pastor, who stood near the altar looking like he wanted to be anywhere else on earth. Behind her, the whispers had started. Should they leave? Should they stay? Was this the most spectacular meltdown they'd ever witnessed? The phone buzzed. "Well? Is he?" Her fingers betrayed her. "Yes. Perfect. 5 minutes. Fix your makeup. When I walk through those doors, you're going to stand up, take my hand, and marry me." The air left Lisa's lungs. The church felt like it was closing in, the flowers too sweet, the silence too loud, the eyes too many. This was insane. This had to be a prank, some sick stranger who got entertainment from abandoned brides. "I don't know you. You will. 3 minutes. Here's what you need to know. I need a wife by midnight to claim my family's empire. You need someone to walk you out of this church with your head held high. We both get what we need. You're out of your mind, possibly. 2 minutes. But I'm also your only exit strategy, unless you'd rather walk that aisle alone while 200 people watch you shatter." Lisa looked down at her dress, at the cathedral train pooled around her like a white sea. 8 months of planning. 8 months of choosing flowers and fonts and the perfect champagne toast. 8 months building a future that Peter had burned to ash this morning with a single text. "Can't do this. I'm sorry. Don't try to find me." The church doors exploded open. Every head whipped around. Lisa's heart stopped. The doors didn't ease open. They slammed wide, pushed by 2 men in black suits who moved like they were trained to kill. They positioned themselves at the entrance, hands clasped, faces carved from granite. eyes scanning the room like threats might materialize from the pews. Then he walked in. It had to be him, the stranger from the texts. He moved down the center aisle like he was claiming territory, like the church existed because he allowed it to. He wore a black three-piece suit that looked like it cost more than Lisa's entire wedding budget, tailored so precisely it seemed dangerous. His long navy coat swept behind him with each step, making him look like shadows given human form. Behind him, 4 more men in identical suits created a wall of intimidation. They weren't groomsmen, they were soldiers. The stranger's face was all sharp edges and ruthless calculation. His hair swept back with the kind of precision that screamed control freak. His eyes found Lisa, and she felt stripped bare, studied, claimed. And he didn't stop until he stood 3 feet from where she sat, frozen. Didn't acknowledge the gasps or the phones being raised to record this insanity. He extended one hand and spoke in a voice that commanded the entire sanctuary. Lisa Williams. Not a question, a statement of ownership. I'm Mi Kyung, and I'm here to marry you. The pastor made a sound like he'd been punched. Someone behind Lisa whispered, "Who the hell is that?" A camera flash went off, then another. Lisa couldn't move. Couldn't process that a complete stranger had just walked into her destroyed wedding with an army and announced he was taking her as his bride in front of everyone she'd ever known. Mi Kyung's hand remained extended, steady, patient. His eyes locked on hers, and she saw something there that terrified her more than anything else about this moment. Certainty. He knew she'd say yes, knew she couldn't face walking out alone, knew that pride and desperation were competing for control of her next breath, and he was offering the only lifeline in sight. "You have 5 seconds," he said quietly, though somehow the entire church heard. "Stand up and take my hand, or I walk out and you face them alone. Your choice." Lisa's gaze flew to the faces behind her. Her mother's horror, her father's rising anger, her bridesmaids clutching each other, the guests who'd come to celebrate and stayed to watch her fall apart. She looked back at Mi Kyung's outstretched hand, then his eyes. No warmth there, no fairy tale, no rescue fantasy. This was a transaction, but it was something. It was a door where there had only been walls. Lisa's body moved before her mind caught up. She stood, on her cathedral train whispering across the floor like secrets. Her hand, still trembling, reached out and touched his. His fingers closed around hers, cool, firm, absolute. "Smart choice," he murmured, then louder, turning to the shell-shocked pastor, "Proceed. The groom has arrived. Welcome to Ruthless Romance Tales. And darling, you just stepped into a world where wrong numbers become wedding vows, and mafia bosses solve problems with contracts instead of bullets. If you've been here before, you know we don't do safe. We do dangerous, we do obsessive. We do the kind of love that brands itself into your bones and refuses to let go. And if you're new here, strap in. Because what you're about to witness is a collision between desperation and power, between a woman who lost everything and a man who takes everything he wants. Oh, let's continue." The pastor's voice shook as he began the ceremony. Lisa barely heard the words. Her hand remained locked in Mi Kyung's grip, and she couldn't tell if she was holding on or being held. The guests sat frozen, a tableau of shock and confusion. Her mother had her hand over her mouth. Her father looked like he was deciding whether to charge the altar or have a heart attack. Mi Kyung didn't look at any of them. His attention remained fixed on the pastor, his expression suggesting that delays would not be tolerated. "Do you, Mi Kyung, take this woman?" "I do." His voice cut through the hesitation like a blade. The pastor's eyes shifted to Lisa. The sanctuary held its breath. "And do you, Lisa Williams, take this man?" The words stuck in her throat. This was insane. She didn't know him. didn't know his last name or his favorite color or whether he was actually capable of murder, though the men flanking the aisle suggested yes. But she knew Peter's empty chair, knew the whispers behind her, knew that walking out of this church alone would destroy her in ways she couldn't survive. "I do." The words came out barely above a whisper. Mi Kyung's thumb brushed across her knuckles once. The gesture should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a brand. "Then by the power vested in me." The pastor was rushing now, eager to end this nightmare. "I pronounce you husband and wife." Mi Kyung didn't wait for permission. He pulled Lisa closer, his free hand sliding to the small of her back, and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was claiming, possessive, a message to everyone watching that she was his now, whatever that meant. And then when he pulled back, his lips barely moved. "Smile. We're married." Lisa's face arranged itself into something that might pass for happiness in a photograph. Mi Kyung turned them to face the guests, his arm an iron band around her waist. "Thank you all for witnessing," he said, his voice carrying that same absolute authority. "The reception will proceed as planned, my gift to the bride's family for their hospitality." He didn't wait for a response. He guided Lisa down the aisle, his men falling into formation around them. The guests parted like water, too stunned to do anything but stare. Outside, a black Mercedes waited, flanked by two more identical vehicles. Mi Kyung's hand never left Lisa's back as he guided her toward the middle car. One of his men opened the door. "Wait!" Lisa's voice cracked. I need to... My family..." "Will be fine." Mi Kyung's tone left no room for argument. "Get in the car, Lisa." She looked back at the church. Her mother was running down the steps, her father right behind her. Other guests were spilling out, phones raised, recording everything. "Lisa!" Her mother's voice broke. "Baby, wait!" Mi Kyung's hand pressed more firmly against her back. Not painful, just inevitable. "Now, Lisa." She got in the car. The door closed with the solid thunk of German engineering. Mi Kyung slid in beside her, and the vehicle was moving before she could reach for the handle. The other cars bracketed them front and rear, a convoy cutting through the city like they owned every street. Lisa's hands twisted in her lap, crushing the delicate lace of her dress. "Where are we going?" "My penthouse." Mi Kyung pulled out his phone, fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. "You'll have everything you need there." "I need my things, my clothes, my..." "Already being collected." Lisa's head snapped toward him. "How?" I know where you live." He didn't look up from his phone. "I know everything about you, Lisa Williams, age 27, graphic designer, rents a studio apartment in Midtown, has a sister in Portland and parents who still live in the house you grew up in." He finally met her eyes. "I don't make decisions without information." Cold dread pooled in her stomach. "You researched me in 9 minutes?" "I have resources." He returned to his phone. "And I needed to know who I was marrying." "You're insane." The words escaped before she could stop them. Mi Kyung's mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. "Say you said I do anyway." Because she'd had no choice. Because walking out alone would have killed something inside her. Because in that moment, a dangerous stranger had seemed like a better option than public humiliation. Lisa turned to the window, watching the city blur past. They were heading uptown toward the glass towers that scraped the sky, the kind of buildings where apartments cost more than most people made in a lifetime. "The contract," she said, her voice hollow. "You said 1 year?" "Midnight tonight, you'll sign it." Mi Kyung pocketed his phone. 12 months. You live in my home, attend events as my wife, and maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage. In exchange, I secure my inheritance and you receive my dignity. The laugh that escaped her was bitter. "Oh, I think we're past that." $5 million. Lisa's breath stopped. She turned to stare at him. What? $5 million, transferred to your account the day our contract ends. His expression remained neutral, like he was discussing the weather. Plus, living expenses covered during the year, a new wardrobe, and access to anything you need. It's a generous offer for 12 months of your time. It's prostitution. It's business. His eyes hardened. And it's non-negotiable. You're already Mrs. Mi Kyung. The only question is whether you're compensated for it. The car pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that looked like it was made entirely of glass and ambition. The door opened before Lisa could formulate a response. Mi Kyung exited smoothly, then extended his hand back to her. She ignored it, climbed out on her own, not the train of her dress dragging across concrete. The elevator was private, requiring a key card that Mi Kyung produced from inside his suit jacket. The ride up was silent except for the whisper of ascending machinery. Lisa watched the floor numbers climb, 20, 30, 40. They didn't stop until 58. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Lisa stepped out and forgot how to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, offering a 360-degree view of the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and blood. The furnishings were minimal, all clean lines and dark woods and leather that looked like it cost more than her car. Everything was perfectly placed, perfectly chosen, perfectly controlled, like the man who lived here. Your room is down that hallway. Mi Kyung gestured to the left. Second door. Your things will arrive within the hour. Dinner is at 8. Don't be late. He walked away before she could respond, disappearing into another part of the penthouse, like he hadn't just upended her entire existence. Lisa stood alone in her wedding dress, surrounded by windows that made her feel exposed from every angle. She wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted to wake up and discover this was just a nightmare born from wedding stress and bad champagne. Instead, she walked down the hallway to the second door. The bedroom was larger than her entire apartment. The bed could have slept 6 people comfortably. More windows offered views that people paid thousands just to see from observation decks. An ensuite bathroom visible through an open door looked like something from a luxury hotel. Lisa caught sight of herself in a mirror mounted above a dresser. Her makeup was ruined, mascara tracked down her cheeks. Her hair, which had taken 3 hours to perfect this morning, was coming loose from its pins. The dress she'd chosen with such care looked like a costume now, a prop in someone else's play. She was a stranger to herself. A knock at the door made her jump. One of Mi Kyung's men. She didn't know their names, couldn't tell them apart in their identical suits, stood in the doorway holding a garment bag and a small suitcase. Your belongings, Mrs. Mi. He set them inside the door and left without waiting for a response. Mrs. Mai. The name felt like a collar. Lisa unzipped the garment bag and found her clothes from home. Not all of them. Someone had made selections, the practical pieces, the professional outfits. Nothing too casual, nothing too personal. Her favorite ratty college sweatshirt wasn't there. Neither were the pajama pants with the hole in the knee. Someone had curated her life and decided what parts were acceptable. She changed mechanically, trading the wedding dress for black slacks and a simple blouse. Washed her face until her skin felt raw. Pulled her hair back into a ponytail that hurt. At exactly 8 o'clock, she emerged from the bedroom. The dining room table could have seated 20. Mi Kyung sat at the head, still in his suit, though he'd removed the jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms that looked more muscular than she'd expected. A shoulder holster was visible across his chest. The gun nestled against his ribs like it belonged there. He was armed, in his own home, at dinner. The message was clear. This was a man who never felt safe enough to be unarmed. Sit. He gestured to the chair at his right. Lisa sat. A place setting appeared before her, delivered by a woman in a simple black uniform who vanished as quickly as she'd appeared. The food was elaborate, some kind of Korean fusion that probably had a Michelin star attached to its name. Eat. Mi Kyung's tone suggested it wasn't a suggestion. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten since this morning. You'll make yourself sick. He cut into his own meal with surgical precision. Eat, Lisa. The use of her name felt intentional, a reminder that he knew things about her, had studied her, and had decided she was worth $5 million for 12 months of pretending to love him. She picked up her fork. The food tasted like ash, but she forced it down anyway. Rules, Mi Kyung said after a moment. We should establish them now. You mean your rules? Lisa set down her fork. Let me guess. I smile when required. I don't ask questions. I exist as decoration. His eyes lifted to hers. You're angry. That's understandable. But redirect it productively. I'm not your ex-fiancé. No, you're the stranger who bought me. I saved you. His voice remained level, but something dangerous flickered in his expression. There's a difference. Is there? Lisa leaned back in her chair. Because from where I'm sitting, I traded one man who didn't want me for another who only wants me for optics. Mi Kyung set down his own fork. He reached for the wine glass beside his plate and took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving hers. You think I'm the villain in your story, aren't you? I'm the only reason you're not trending on social media as the most pathetic bride of the year. He set the glass down with controlled precision. I'm the reason your family isn't fielding calls from reporters asking what was so wrong with you that your fiancé ran. I'm the reason you have somewhere to sleep tonight that isn't your childhood bedroom while your mother asks what you did to drive him away. Each word landed like a slap, because he was right. Because without him, she'd be drowning right now, and everyone would be watching her go under. So yes, Mi Kyung continued, this is transactional. But don't pretend you didn't choose this. You could have said no, could have walked out alone. You didn't, which means some part of you knew this was the better option. Lisa's hands clenched in her lap. You didn't give me time to think. Because thinking would have led to the wrong answer. He picked up his fork again, returning to his meal like the conversation was over. Eat your dinner, Lisa. Tomorrow I'll introduce you to the rest of your obligations. She wanted to throw the plate at his head, wanted to scream that he was a manipulative bastard who'd ambushed her at her lowest moment, wanted to run. Instead, she picked up her fork and ate, because he was right about one thing. She had chosen this. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of control and careful choreography. Lisa learned that Mi Kyung ran his life, and now hers, like a military operation. Breakfast at 7. Weren't his meetings from 8 to noon, during which she was expected to stay in the penthouse and acclimate. Lunch alone, while he took calls in his office. Afternoons where she was free to do as she pleased, as long as she pleased, meant staying within approved parameters. Dinner at 8, always together, always formal. She was a porcelain doll on a shelf, beautiful and breakable and ultimately useless. The contract arrived the second night, delivered in a black leather portfolio by a lawyer who looked like he'd never smiled in his life. 12 pages of legal language that boiled down to pretend to love him, don't embarrass him, and in 12 months, walk away rich. Lisa had signed it because what else was she going to do? But by the 4th day, something inside her started to crack. She was in the living room staring out at the city when Mi Kyung emerged from his office. He'd been on conference calls all morning, his voice carrying through the penthouse in clipped Korean that sounded like orders being given and obeyed. Tonight, he said without preamble, we have a charity gala, the Kim Foundation. You'll wear the black dress in your closet, hair up, minimal jewelry. Lisa didn't turn around. And if I don't want to go, it's not optional. Nothing is, apparently. She finally looked at him. I'm not a decorative vase you can just place where it looks best. No. His expression remained neutral. You're my wife, and my wife has responsibilities. Responsibilities? The laugh that escaped her was sharp. I sit here all day in this glass cage while you make your deals and give your orders. I eat when you say eat. I smile when you say smile. I wear what you tell me to wear. I'm not a wife. I'm a prop. You're paid $5 million to be a prop. Mi Kyung's voice hardened. If that's insufficient, name your price. It's not about the money. Lisa stood, her hands shaking. You can't just buy people and expect them to be grateful. I bought your way out of humiliation, and you were grateful enough to say, I do. I was desperate. And now you're rich. He closed the distance between them in 3 strides. Or you will be. So adjust your expectations, Lisa, because this is your life now. For 12 months, you exist in my world, by my rules. If that's too difficult, there's a contract clause for early termination. You walk away with nothing, and I find someone more amenable. They stood inches apart, her anger meeting his cold control. This close, and she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, could smell the expensive cologne that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to, could see that despite his perfect composure, there was something dangerous simmering beneath the surface. You don't scare me, she lied. His mouth curved. I should. He turned and walked away, leaving her standing there with her pulse pounding in her ears. That night she wore the black dress. Let the stylist who appeared arrange her hair. Put on the diamond earrings that probably cost more than her car. She smiled at the gala, laughed at appropriate moments. Let Mi Kyung's hand rest possessively on her lower back as he introduced her to men in expensive suits who looked at her like a transaction successfully completed. She was exactly what he'd bought. Beautiful, compliant, empty. And she hated every second of it. But she didn't leave. Because $5 million could buy a lot of freedom, could buy a future where she never had to depend on anyone again, could buy safety. She just had to survive 12 months first. The phone call came on day 7. Lisa was alone in the penthouse, Mi Kyung at some meeting that apparently required his personal attention. She'd been reading, or trying to, when her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She should have ignored it. Instead, she answered. Lisa? The voice punched the air from her lungs. Lisa, please don't hang up. Peter. Her fingers went numb around the phone. The book slipped from her lap. I know you're angry, he continued, words rushing out. I know I hurt you, but I need you to listen. Please, just listen. She should have hung up, and should have blocked the number and deleted every trace of him from her life. Talk. The word came out strangled. I didn't want to leave. His voice cracked convincingly. God, Lisa, I wanted to marry you more than anything, but they gave me no choice. Who's they? The people I owed money to. Gambling debts. I was stupid, I know, but they were going to kill me. They said if I showed up at that wedding, they'd come after you too. So I ran, to protect you. Lisa's free hand pressed against her chest where her heart was trying to break through her ribs. You left me at the altar to protect me? I know how it sounds. I know what I put you through, but I couldn't risk them hurting you. A pause. And then I heard you got married to some Korean businessman. Lisa, and what were you thinking? I was thinking I was sitting alone in a church being pitied by 200 people. I'm so sorry. I never wanted that, but we can fix this. We can fix this? The words came out sharp. Peter, I'm married. To a stranger. For what? Money? Lisa, that's not you. You're better than that. His voice dropped, intimate and familiar. Meet me. Let me explain everything face to face. You deserve the truth. every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that Peter had proven who he was when he'd abandoned her, that nothing he could say would change the fact that he'd chosen the easy way out and left her to drown in the consequences. But some part of her, the part that had loved him, had planned a life with him, needed to hear it, needed to understand. When? She heard herself ask. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. When the coffee shop where we had our first date, remember? She remembered. Remembered thinking he was perfect. Remembered believing in happy endings. I'll think about it. Lisa, please, I love you. I never stopped loving you. She hung up before he could say anything else. The phone felt like it was burning in her hand. She set it down on the coffee table and stared at it like it might explode. Peter loved her, had left to protect her, had been forced into impossible choices, or he was a liar who'd found a new angle. Lisa pressed her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. She didn't know what was real anymore, didn't know who to trust, didn't know if the man who'd promised forever had been telling the truth then or now, but she knew she needed answers, and tomorrow she was going to get them. Lisa wore sunglasses to the coffee shop even though the day was overcast. She'd told no one where she was going. Mi Kyung had left early for meetings, his parting instruction a clipped reminder about dinner reservations at 7. She'd nodded, smiled, waited for the door to close before calling a car. The coffee shop looked exactly the same. Same chipped tile floor, same mismatched furniture trying to pass as vintage charm, same smell of over-roasted beans and burnt milk. She and Peter had sat in the corner booth for 4 hours on their first date, talking until the barista asked them to leave so she could close. That felt like a lifetime ago. Peter was already there, sitting in that same corner booth. He looked thinner, tired. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and for a moment, just a moment, she remembered why she'd loved him. Now you came. He stood, reached for her hands. She stepped back. Talk. You have 10 minutes. His face fell, but he sat. Lisa slid into the opposite side of the booth, keeping the table between them like a barrier. I've been hiding, he said. Moving every few days. They're still looking for me, Lisa. The people I owe, they won't stop until... How much? What? How much do you owe? Her voice was flat. Give me a number, Peter. He hesitated. 200,000. For gambling. I had a problem. I know that now. I've been getting help. Going to meetings. You left me at the altar for $200,000. Lisa leaned back against the worn vinyl. And now you want what? For me to leave my husband and run away with you? Hide from loan sharks while you attend meetings? I want you safe. He reached across the table. This man you married, Lisa, do you even know who he is? What he does? He saved me from the worst day of my life. He's Korean Mafia. Peter's voice dropped. I did research. Mi Kyung runs half the underground operations in this city. He's dangerous. Coming from the man who'd sold her dignity for gambling debts, the warning felt absurd. Then I'm well protected. You're in danger. Peter's hand closed over hers. Please, we can disappear together. I have a plan. We just need... The coffee shop door opened. Lisa's blood turned to ice. Mi Kyung walked in, flanked by 2 of his men. He moved through the cramped space like he owned it, his presence sucking the air from the room. His eyes found Lisa, then Peter, then their joined hands on the table. His expression didn't change. Somehow, that was worse than anger. Mrs. Me. His voice was perfectly controlled. You're needed at home. Peter's hand tightened on hers. She's with me. We're talking. Mi Kyung's gaze shifted to Peter. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. You're the ex-fiancé, Peter Chen, the gambling addict who ran out on his own wedding. I left to protect her from people like you, people like me. Mi Kyung's mouth curved without humor. People who honor their commitments, who don't abandon women they claim to love in front of 200 witnesses. He looked at Lisa. Car, now. I'm not done here. Yes. His eyes hardened. You are. One of his men moved to the booth. Peter stood, his chair scraping back. Touch her, and the man didn't touch her. Didn't need to. His presence alone was a threat. Lisa stood on her own, her heart hammering. Peter, I have to go. Lisa, please, I'll call you. She wouldn't. They both knew it, but the lie was easier than the truth. Mi Kyung didn't touch her as they walked to the car, didn't speak, didn't acknowledge her existence beyond holding the door open. She climbed inside and he followed, the door closing with that same solid thunk that now sounded like a cell door. They didn't drive back to the penthouse. Where are we going? Lisa's voice came out smaller than she intended. A lesson. Mi Kyung stared out the window. Something I should have taught you sooner. The warehouse district at the edge of the city was industrial wasteland. Abandoned buildings and rusted equipment, the kind of place where screaming wouldn't carry. The car stopped in front of a corrugated metal building that looked like it might collapse in a strong wind. Lisa's hands started shaking. What is this? Accountability. Mi Kyung exited the car. She didn't want to follow. Every instinct screamed to lock the doors and demand to be taken home. But two more cars had pulled up behind them, more men in dark suits emerging like shadows given form. She got out. Inside the warehouse, industrial lights hung from chains, casting harsh shadows across concrete stained with things Lisa didn't want to identify. In the center of the space, tied to a metal chair, was Peter. Lisa's scream caught in her throat. He was conscious, but barely. Blood streaked down his face from a cut above his eye. His shirt was torn. His hands were bound behind the chair, and he was shaking. What did you do? Lisa rounded on Mi Kyung. You can't. He touched what's mine. Mi Kyung's voice was colder than she'd ever heard it. Now that requires correction. I'm not yours. I'm not property. You signed a contract. You wear my ring. You live in my home. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. For 12 months, Lisa, you are exactly mine. And he needs to understand what happens when someone tries to take what belongs to me. Peter lifted his head, his eyes finding hers through the blood. Lisa, run. She couldn't move, couldn't process that the man she'd married, the stranger who'd saved her, was capable of this. Mi Kyung walked to Peter with the casual grace of a predator approaching wounded prey. Tell her the truth. I don't know what you... Mi Kyung backhanded him. The sound echoed through the warehouse. Lisa flinched, bile rising in her throat. Tell her, Mi Kyung repeated, or I start breaking fingers. I loved her. Peter's voice cracked. That's the truth. I loved her, and I made mistakes. You sold her. Mi Kyung pulled a gun from his shoulder holster, not pointing it, just holding it. A promise. To the Red Dragon Syndicate. Your gambling debt. You paid it by giving them her schedule, her routines, everything they needed to know about her. She was collateral. The words didn't make sense. Lisa shook her head. No, he wouldn't. Ask him. Mi Kyung's eyes never left Peter. Ask him if he sold you to monsters to save his own skin. Lisa's knees felt weak. She looked at Peter, willing him to deny it, to laugh and call it a lie, to be the man she'd thought he was. Peter's silence was the loudest sound she'd ever heard. You... The word barely made it past the lump in her throat. You sold me? I had no choice. Tears mixed with the blood on his face. They were going to kill me. I thought I could figure something out before they collected. I thought you'd trade my life for yours. The words tasted like poison. I'm sorry. God, Lisa, I'm so sorry. Mi Kyung raised the gun. No! Lisa grabbed his arm. Don't, please, he's not worth it. Mi Kyung looked down at her hand on his wrist, then at her face. Something shifted in his expression, too quick to identify. He lowered the gun. Get in the car. What are you going to do to him? Nothing permanent. His smile was a knife edge. Yet, but if he contacts you again, if he comes near you, if he so much as thinks your name too loudly, then I'll finish this. Are we clear? The question was directed at Peter, who nodded frantically. Mi Kyung holstered the gun and guided Lisa toward the exit, his hand on her lower back. How she was shaking so hard she could barely walk. In the car, she pressed her hands over her face and tried to breathe, tried to process that Peter had sold her, that the man she'd planned to marry had used her as currency, that every word he'd said in that coffee shop had been another manipulation. I didn't know, she whispered, about the red dragons, about any of it. I know. Mi Kyung's voice was quieter now, almost gentle. That's why you're not in that chair beside him. The implication sent ice through her veins. If she'd known, if she'd been complicit, he would have treated her the same way. What do they want? She lowered her hands. The red dragons. If Peter already paid them with me, they want leverage. Mi Kyung stared out the window. Against me, against my family's operations. A wife is a vulnerability. One they intended to exploit. So marrying me made you a target. Marrying you gave them a target. Keeping you safe is just another cost of doing business. But his hand had moved to cover hers on the seat between them, and his thumb was tracing slow circles over her knuckles, like he was soothing himself as much as her. The gala 3 nights later was at the Regency Grand, all crystal chandeliers and champagne fountains, and people wearing more money than most saw in a year. Lisa wore emerald green because Mi Kyung had chosen it, diamond earrings because he'd insisted, a smile because he'd demanded it. But something had shifted since the warehouse. She watched him differently now, saw the way his eyes constantly scanned rooms, cataloging threats, noticed how he positioned himself between her and strangers, and recognized that the gun under his tailored jacket wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. He was dangerous, but to everyone except her. She was pulling that thought apart when a man approached, older, Korean, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. One of Mi Kyung's business associates, she assumed, until he spoke. Mrs. Mi, how lovely to finally meet you. His accent was slight, his tone poisonous. Your husband speaks of you so fondly. Mi Kyung materialized at her elbow. Mr. Choi, I didn't realize you were invited. I go where business takes me. Choi's smile widened. And you're always good business, Mi Kyung, though I hear the Red Dragons are interested in new ventures. Something about settling old debts? The threat was barely veiled. Lisa felt Mi Kyung's hand settle on her waist, not possessive now, but protective. Are the Red Dragons, Mi Kyung said softly, should worry about their own affairs. They are. Choi's eyes slid to Lisa. Such a beautiful wife. Your ex-fiancé had excellent taste, though I understand he was more interested in her value as collateral than as a bride. 200,000 is quite reasonable for such a lovely woman, don't you think? Lisa's blood turned to ice. This man knew what Peter had done, knew she'd been currency in a transaction that had nothing to do with love. Enjoy the gala, Mr. Choi. Mi Kyung's voice had gone deadly quiet. But if you approach my wife again, we'll have a different conversation. Choi inclined his head, that terrible smile still in place, and melted back into the crowd. Lisa couldn't breathe. The room was too hot, too crowded, too full of people who knew her secret shame. I need air. Mi Kyung didn't argue. He guided her through the crowd, out to a balcony that overlooked the city. The night air was cold, sharp, clearing her head. He's with them. She gripped the railing. The Red Dragons. Yes, and they're going to come after me, to hurt you. They're going to try. Mi Kyung turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. Listen to me, Lisa. I don't lose what's mine. Not to them, not to anyone. You're safe. How can you promise that? Because I've spent the last 2 weeks dismantling their operations piece by piece. Because my men are everywhere theirs are. Because... He stopped, something flickering across his face. Because what? Because you matter. The words came out rough, more than the contract, more than the inheritance. You matter, and I won't let them have you. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She pulled it out with shaking hands. The image that loaded made her knees buckle. Peter, tied to a chair again, but this time in different location. His face was worse than before, swollen and bloody, and behind him, holding a knife to his throat, was a man in a red jacket with a dragon embroidered across the back. The caption read, Pier 19, 1 hour, come alone or he dies screaming. No, Lisa's voice broke. No, they can't. Mi Kyung took the phone from her hands, his expression darkening as he read the message. It's a trap. I know that, but they'll kill him. He sold you to them. And he's still a human being who doesn't deserve to be tortured to death. She grabbed Mi Kyung's arm. Please. We can't just let them. We're not going. He pocketed her phone. My men will handle it. By the time they get there, Peter could be dead. Then he's dead. Mi Kyung's eyes were cold again. You're not walking into a red dragon trap because your ex-fiancé gambled with the wrong people. I have to try. You have to stay alive. His hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. This is what they want, Lisa. You, alone, vulnerable. They'll use Peter as bait, and when you show up, they'll take you, and then they'll send me pieces of you until I give them what they want. The image was horrific, and probably accurate, but she couldn't stop seeing Peter's face in that photo, couldn't stop hearing his voice in the coffee shop, desperate and scared, couldn't stop remembering that she'd loved him once, had promised to spend her life with him. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she ran. She made it to the parking garage before Mi Kyung's men caught up, but she'd already called a car. It arrived before they could stop her, and she was inside and giving the address to Pier 19 before they could pull her out. Her phone rang. Mi Kyung. She declined the call. It rang again. Again. She turned it off. The pier was exactly as horrifying as she'd imagined. Shipping containers stacked like a metal maze, pools of water reflecting industrial lights, the smell of salt and rust and something rotting. The car dropped her at the entrance and she walked into the shadows alone. Peter? Her voice echoed off metal. Peter, I'm here. Footsteps behind her. She spun. 3 men in red jackets. No Peter. Where is he? Lisa's hands clenched into fists. All you said, if I came... We said a lot of things. The man in front smiled. But your boyfriend's been dead for 6 hours. Outlived his usefulness once we got you here. The world tilted. You're lying. Check container 17 if you want proof, but you won't like what you find. He gestured, and the other men moved to flank her. Now, you're coming with us, and you're going to make a very pretty video for your husband. Lisa backed up. Her heel caught on uneven pavement. She stumbled, caught herself, kept moving. He'll kill you, all of you. He'll try, but he'll give us what we want first. The man pulled out a phone, opened the camera. Let's start with a message. Tell him you're safe, for now. She turned and ran, made it 3 steps before hands grabbed her, yanking her back. She screamed, fought, kicked, and connected with something that made one of them grunt. Then something hard cracked against her skull, and the world went sideways. She hit the ground, tasted blood, heard them laughing. Then she heard gunfire, the hands on her released. She rolled onto her side, vision swimming, and saw the men in red jackets dropping. Not falling, dropping, One shot each, precise and fatal, and walking through the maze of containers, gun raised, expression carved from ice and fury, was Mi Kyung. He wasn't alone. His men emerged from the shadows like they'd been there all along, surrounding the area, eliminating threats with the efficiency of a military operation. Mi Kyung reached her in seconds, dropped to his knees beside her, one hand touching her face where blood was streaming from a cut above her eye. Lisa, look at me." She focused on him. "Peter's dead." "I know." His thumb wiped blood from her cheek. "I'm sorry." "They were going to film. They said they'd send you." "I know." He pulled her against his chest, his heart hammering against her ear. "But they won't. They won't touch you. I won't let them." More gunfire, distant now. Shouts. Then silence. One of Mi Kyung's men approached. "Secured. No survivors." Mi Kyung nodded, still holding Lisa. "The body?" "Container 17, like the message said." Lisa's stomach turned. Peter was in there. Dead. Because he'd made bad choices and worse deals and thought he could trade her life for his debts. "I want to see him." "No." Mi Kyung's arms tightened. "You don't." "I need to. Please." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, pulling her up with him, and walked her to container 17. The door was already open. Peter was inside, tied to a chair like in the photo, but the life was gone from his eyes. They'd cut his throat, left him to bleed out alone in a metal box. Lisa's knees gave out. Mi Kyung caught her, held her up, let her look until she'd seen enough. "I'm sorry," he said again, quiet and sincere. "I'm sorry this happened. Sorry he betrayed you. Sorry you had to see this. He loved me once." Her voice was hollow. "Didn't he? Maybe, but not enough." Mi Kyung turned her away from the container, guiding her back toward the cars. "Not the way you deserved." The ride back was silent. Lisa's head throbbed. Her dress was ruined. Her phone was still off in her purse. She'd walked into a trap, almost died, and Mi Kyung had come anyway, had saved her anyway, had looked at her with something like fear when he'd found her on the ground. And at the penthouse, he cleaned the cut on her head himself. Gentle fingers, warm water, antiseptic that stung. She sat on the bathroom counter and let him work, too exhausted to protest. "You could have died," he said finally, "if I'd been 5 minutes later. But you weren't. I almost was." He set down the gauze. "Because I had to track your car, mobilize my men, get to the docks before they—" He stopped. His hands were shaking. Lisa caught them in hers. "You saved me." "I shouldn't have had to." His eyes met hers, and she saw it clearly now. Fear. Real, raw fear. "You're supposed to be safe." That was the deal. Your safety for my inheritance. But you ran into danger and I— "You what?" "I was terrified." The admission came out broken. That I'd lose you. That they'd take you. Wark and I'd spend the rest of my life hunting the pieces they left behind. And I realized that $5 million doesn't mean anything if you're not here to collect it. Lisa's breath caught. "Mi Kyung, I'm in love with you." The words escaped like a confession. "I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you stood up in that church and took my hand. Maybe when you argued with me about being decorative. Maybe tonight when I thought I was too late. But I love you. And the contract is meaningless now because I don't want you here for 12 months. I want you here forever." Silence filled the bathroom. The city glittered beyond the windows. Lisa's heart was doing something complicated in her chest. "Show me the contract," she said. He blinked. "What?" "The contract, show me." Mi Kyung pulled it from his office safe. In 12 pages of legal language that had felt like chains a week ago. Lisa took it, walked to the fireplace in the living room, and dropped it into the flames. They watched it burn together. "I'm not staying for money. Lisa said as the pages curled to ash. "And I'm not staying because of a contract. I'm staying because you ran into gunfire to save me. Because you looked terrified when you thought you were too late. Because somewhere between the altar and tonight, you stopped being a stranger and started being the only person who makes me feel safe." She turned to face him. "I'm staying because I choose you, not because I have to, because I want to." Mi Kyung's hands cupped her face, and he kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning, not claiming this time, cherishing. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Dad, my room is down the hall." "I know. Move into it. Not as part of a contract, as my wife. My real wife. My queen." Lisa smiled, and for the first time since Peter had left her at the altar, it didn't hurt. Yes. She moved her things that night, fell asleep in Mi Kyung's bed with his arm around her waist and his breath against her neck. Woke up to city lights streaming through windows and the knowledge that she'd survived her worst nightmare and found something better on the other side. The altar had been shame. The contract had been survival. But this was choice. And for the first time in her life, Lisa Williams, Lisa Mai, knew exactly where she belonged.